Today we're going to be talking about building a removables department, and that's really a hot topic. Everybody's talking about removables these days, whether it be 3D printing removables, different resins that are out there, milling. I mean, there's so many different ways of producing a removable appliance. So what I want to ask our panel first is, what would you consider to be the hottest trends in 3D printing as far as removables go? Dennis?
I'll go first. Sure. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of great things happening. I would say, that there are multiple technologies and digital dentures that are becoming the hottest trend. So I can't think of just one. I can think of a few. And, we've evolved so much in the past few years with digital dentures and printed dentures, especially with denture-based fit, function, and aesthetics. And now with inkjet technology coming of age, that technology gives us the ability to print the shade we need to match the patient's gingiva. And, being a diehard analog technician for so many years, I did a lot of denture-based staining, and it takes time and it takes expertise. And now there's a lot of this is done for us, with this new technology, and eliminating the need for staining in many cases saves a lot of time. And the printing of a more aesthetic denture tooth has added to this technology also. And that's a real plus I see on the side of printed dentures, because I think it's less labor intensive and we can get a more predictable outcome.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo what Dennis said there. I'd say we kind of have to segment the printed dentures in two different categories. Now, we have our conventional single resin printing processes that we've all been deploying for a number of years. I think we've been woefully lacking good printable tooth materials that we can feel comfortable scaling with that will last in the mouth. So I think that's been one of the big, I would say, big developments that we've seen over the past year here, really since COVID, is good nano-ceramic printable tooth materials that are either classified as a high impact solution or have good stain and wear resistance. However, let's talk about stain resistance, because I think that's where jetting is gonna have a big impact too. The new jetting technologies are a little bit more immature. Definitely not nearly as strong as the DLP resins that we currently have on the market. So they're not going to be as resistant and as resilient in the mouth. However, I think one of the big things we've seen with the current generation of printed materials is that they stain a lot quicker than anything we can mill or things that we've done in the analog fashion. So knowing that stain resistance is one of the limitations of single resin printing, being able to print in what we call a CMYK or CMYW, where we're mixing the materials in the shades on the machine and printing those out in an inkjet fashion, I think we're going to see shade last a little bit longer in that type of printing technology. Also, we're also seeing that inkjet printing process is considerably more accurate across the entire global surface of the denture, not just the fitting surface, but the occlusal surface, because no longer do we have error being introduced when we're trying to bond teeth into the base. So it takes a lot longer to print with inkjet. It's not as strong, but I think we can all see that that's definitely the future that we're going to be moving in when it comes to printing, and definitely is one of the hotter topics in the market right now.
Yeah, I second what Dennis and Chris both said, that the inkjet, the ability to print in color is fascinating, and the technology has been there for a while. We've seen it with Stratus's years ago with their models being able to print in full color. That's definitely the way to go. The strength isn't there, like Chris was talking about. It's exciting. It's in the works. If we can print it all in one color, I would really like to be able to print my single centrals and porcelain in full color too. So the future is really exciting. I think that was probably one of the big launches that came out this year. The strength's not there. The process is labor intensive, like Chris was saying. But a lot of new resins, and it's causing a lot of competitors, right, to need to step up. And so dentistry is a really fascinating place to be in with 3D printing right now.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. There's a lot of change that's happening, and it's happening quick. So we have to stay right on top of it. Dennis and Chris, with such a large business model that you're both involved in, what are the hurdles that you encounter when trying to implement like a new workflow? Is it personnel, design, equipment, trust of the materials, financial? You can tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I have thoughts on all those topics here. So, and some experience with that, and I'm sure we all do, but as far as personnel goes, we have many willing technicians who want to dive right into this technology. And training is an option, but I'm a firm believer that analog science applies to digital technology. And I would rather have someone with the background knowledge on these sciences to start in this area in the laboratory. But we also had the option to utilize labs in our network, personally in our network, to help with us with any hurdles. So we have that support. And, when it comes to design was really never a problem, because let's face it, between all the great design services out there available, everybody has options, even small labs, and even newer technicians, new laboratories wanting to get into this technology. And I always tell labs who are contemplating getting into removal technology that the design is holding you up due to lack of knowledge, and technicians utilize a good design service. It's going to really help you out in getting that department moving. And you can utilize this in a successful fashion. As far as equipment goes, it's a whole other topic. Equipment can be a challenge because of the research that needs to go into it. And we've all had these past experience where things didn't work out so much with past technologies, not just printing and digital, but we bought equipment and it didn't work out. So really got to do your homework, choose the best option for your laboratory. Scanners, printers, post-curing units, they all need proper evaluation and research, as far as the trust in the materials is something that needs to be researched and evaluated also. That's really important. And this includes the comfort level of the dentist on these materials. If you can't sell this to the dentist and can't get them comfortable with this technology, then you're not going to be making that profitability in the laboratory. And remember that we're providing a totally new service to a lot of these dentists out there who've never done digital dentures before. We have to get dentists in their comfort zone with this technology. I mean, even the latest NADL survey from last year said it's only like 8 to 10% of laboratories in the country are with dentures. Dentures are being done digitally. So we still have a long way to go, but it's growing very quickly. And I'm sure this has gone up since the latest survey. So there's a lot of things to consider, like you said, Fran, and financially also. We have to look at financial reasons too. Financial considerations are a given. In any situation in the laboratory when you want to start something new or have a new offering. And we have to make sure that all of our ducks are in a row when we're getting ready to make that final decision on purchasing new technology. So especially with the evolving technology, we talked about inkjet printing before. That's still evolving. We still have improvements that are coming our way. So we have to really be careful with that and how much money and we're going to invest in that. And we've made purchases in the past that came back to bite us, in the future. So we have to really be careful with production materials and, importantly, the bottom line. So there's a lot of things to consider.
A lot of things. Chris, do you have anything to add? I mean, your business model is where you have doctors and laboratories that are working together with affordable. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're looking at it through the lens of a big enterprise DSO. At Affordable Dentures and Implants here, we have roughly 450 practices. And in all of those practices, we have some form of laboratory component. So being able to take a DSO of our size and switch over from doing, 40 years of analog dentistry to start doing digital dentistry, of course, is quite the lift. I would say that how I look at everything and evaluate everything is through clinical, operational, and financial. And in that order, that's kind of the bar stool that I try to evaluate digital products at. So I always put the process and the people first. The product is going to hopefully be interchangeable if we get the process down right and we put the right people in the place to be successful. But when it comes to rolling out digital, I would say if I would give any advice to any lab that's going from analog to digital, it's way easier to start a new lab digital from scratch than it is to transition from analog to digital, of course. But what I've seen be successful is doing this crawl, walk, run approach. Not going in with trying to digitize a whole lab and get them with scanners, design software and printers and go through everything and get that lab switched over to digital overnight. I think that's a fool's errand. I think it's going to alienate some of your workforce, and it's going to unfortunately make some of your doctors probably upset too, because they probably don't know exactly how to communicate in the digital world with you as well. So I really like to go slow. And I think to Dennis's point is design is probably the last piece that I would look to bring into any laboratory that's converting from analog to digital, because the design softwares are just not super intuitive when it comes to removable applications right now. They're good, but the ability to train a technician with good foundational tooth setting skills to get them compliant on a computer to be just as productive as they were in the analog world, it takes a good lift. And I mean, realistically, you talk to any of these design services or any of the big labs like Dennis is a part of, it's a good 90-day, learning curve of constant production to get to the point where you can really feel confident to utilize the existing softwares that are out there. I think there's going to be a lot of new cool tools and AI tricks that are coming out to allow us to design and get over that learning curve a lot quicker. But that's probably one of the biggest opportunities in dentistry right now, is to come out with better, more intuitive design softwares that allow everybody to be competent in design. So I always stress that the design services right now are so great, and they're also pretty well priced, that it makes a lot of sense to look into those design services and bring design in last. It's easy to integrate a printer and to get your team around how to process and produce with a printer. And I would always start there with the capital equipment, and of course with good training and education, and really building that communication bridge between the clinical team and the laboratory team is essential for any good digital workflow.
Absolutely. I would love to make this interactive with our attendees. Is that okay with all of you if I put up a poll question? So all of our attendees out there, if you wouldn't mind just answering this one question, since we spoke about design and in-house design and outsourcing, would you be able to tell us if you are currently designing in-house or if you are outsourcing? And Jessica, I just want to go to you because you have a very unique business model. And I was wondering if you would just touch on that with us just a little, just for a moment, while our attendees are answering the questions. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was listening to both Dennis and Chris about outsourcing designing, and I wish I could. I am so picky that every design center, I've tried multiple, I'm just not happy with the designs. We do focus on a really high level of detail, but the challenge with our center, and me in particular, is that I do not like to follow a cookie cutter. We design uniquely for each patient. And so to be able to train a designer how to understand what each patient needs individually is tricky. We can tell them which library to choose from, which is good. When I'm in a hurry, I'll send a design out, like if it's a full mouth, I'll send a design out on occasion so they can get it 70% of the way there for me. And then I'll do the final touch up. And I have found that that's effective because, marking the margin, tooth placement, getting everything in position. If you've got something like a diagnostic wax up or a mock-up or pre-op for them to follow, that's great. If they can get it 60 to 70% of the way there, then I can put the final touches on it. So I will definitely use the design center when I'm tight on my schedule, which has been lately. But yeah, our center, so we've got a dental clinic that we just opened. We've got a medical spa. So we've got a nurse practitioner, master esthetician, and then we've got a functional medicine practice, Forum Health, that we teamed up with. And right now we're really in the elementary stages of combining medical and dental, but also streamlining technology between the dental lab and the clinic. And so we've really been focusing on how can we print temporaries right away, because printed temporaries are beautiful compared to what they can do chairside.
Yeah.
And I know some really great dentists, and even if they're really great with temporaries, it still doesn't surpass what the printed temporaries look like. And when we're doing mock-up, like a shell temp, they just don't look the same. They don't fit the same, and it's hard to get that nice fit. So we're definitely playing around with that system of, trying to design them beforehand, then scanning the prep, and how long does that process take so we can print temps chairside. So yeah, we've got a different center here. I really love health, and so that's what we've been focusing on. And we just launched we just filmed our first podcast that's all focused on simplifying health. So that will be coming here soon. But yeah, I love what Dennis and Chris were saying though, as far as utilizing a design center. I think they both can agree, and anyone that's opening a small lab or considering opening a small lab, man, you've got it easy nowadays compared to where it was when we started. I started in my basement and I outsourced my model work and my pressing because I didn't have the equipment. I just got the impressions, sent them to someone else, got the model work, got it back, waxed it or whatever, took it to someone else to invest in press until I could buy the next set of equipment. So I think nowadays, like they said, if you can outsource designing, great. There's so many of these design centers that will send you the scanner if you're sending them the design. That's a really inexpensive way to go to. and then getting a printer. And like Dennis was saying too, right now it's tough. There's so many cool printers on the market, so
Yeah.
many great resins, but it's still a work in progress with every company to get a solid, predictable system. And I think both Chris and Dennis, that we can all agree that some days it's great and some days we're pulling our hair out, and like it's getting better. It's a lot better compared to where we were 2 years ago. But anyone getting into printed technology, just know you're going to be handling some of that troubleshooting and working closely with whatever company you partner with. Yeah.
You need to partner. You definitely need to partner with somebody and lean on their technical support. Like I know
Yeah.
at Zahn, I mean, we have a great technical support team, and our customers do lean on us for that.
Yeah.
So it's important. It's important when you're buying big pieces of equipment to have somebody that you can rely on.
Yeah,
That's
you do
all
have a
human
great
welcome.
technical support team. We work with 3Shape. We bought our scanner through you, and I love your guys there. We utilize them often.
Yeah, they're definitely great. They really
Yeah.
are. We use a lot of our technical support technicians over at our road shows, because we just feel like they're great for answering questions. They're great at presenting. They know what they're doing. So if we're going to be coming to a city near you, attendees, so take a look at Zahn Academy at where our next one will be, and I'll talk about that at the end. But we will have quite a few of our technical support team as well as our sales there to answer questions and just pick their brain, because that's what they're good at.
I wanted to add to what Jessica and Chris said just real quickly. Jessica, I know where you're coming from when you say you want to have that control, and each patient is so unique. And I'm the same way. I mean, I'm a fanatic in the laboratory with quality, but I wish I had more of that control. But when you outsource, sometimes you don't. And I agree with you on that. And what Chris said earlier, about the learning curve on this. I remember one of the first seminars I went to it was a hands-on course, and one of the major manufacturers on design. And this technician was really experienced, had a lot of years. And he told me that it took him anywhere from 90 days to 6 months to every day to be proficient at designing, So, and this is an experienced technician. So sometimes there are challenges, and it takes a while, even though you know what you're doing, the science behind the analog. Sometimes it's hard to get to apply that, but after you practice and you have that repetition, you get really good at it.
Yeah.
It
is a different world going from analog to digital.
Yeah,
I think my head was moving more than the cursor on the screen when I went to 3D mouse for a while there. But yeah, I agree. It is a learning curve, and I think that's a mistake a lot of people are making right now. Is they're just jumping into digital, like Chris was saying, bring in design last. It seems like design should be first, but you're going to have to invest a lot of time in learning that, or a lot of time in training someone, especially if they have zero dental experience. I think that's a mistake a lot of people are making right now. They're just hiring anyone thinking they can throw them in, which you can, just point and click for the most part. But when it comes down to having to manipulate things and when it comes to technicians' knowledge, where they have to take it beyond what the software can do with standard AI, that's where we run into the problems. And it's that time investment, right? Yeah.
The denture, it has to be beautiful, but it also has to be functional. So
Right.
you need to know anatomy, and you need to know certain things, right? If you're going to be designing.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But I'd love to share the results with you. So 70% of our attendees are designing in-house, and 30% are outsourcing. So does anybody have anything that they want to contribute to that?
I would say that whether you're outsourcing or whether you're designing yourself, if there's one pearl I guess I would share that I think is the best at being able to bridge that communication gap between the clinic and the lab, or between the lab and who you have designing for you, is communication around smile design, specifically around mold selection. I think if we're used to being analog denture technicians, we all have like the molds we know like the back of our hand that we like to use for our patients and that our doctors like and have an expectation with. When we look at digital, a lot of times the expectation that the doctor has is they're going to use a patient's existing denture as a reference. And then we at the design side will have to, of course, design to try and meet that expectation as best as possible. But the design software doesn't really work that way. Unless you really have a perfect denture that you're scanning in and you follow a true copy design workflow or copy mill workflow, you can get exact one-to-one replica of what you're trying to replicate. The problem is I've seen that as much more of a myth than reality, because reality is we're usually taking a patient's denture that they've been wearing for, anywhere from 3 to 5 years or longer, and we're scanning that in, using that as a reference, and we want to account for the wear. We want to use new materials. We want to make it look nicer. The workflow doesn't really allow us to do that. So really what we're asking the designers to do is to choose a digital library that best fits with what we have scanned in. And there's definitely a big disconnect between what was scanned in and what we think is that digital library inside of our 3Shape or exocad software. So being able to communicate on shape, mold, and maybe if you can get innovative and use some software to tell you, what's the closest mold based off of what you've scanned in, I think helps get to that expectation a little bit better. But I found it to be very successful to have, simple shade tabs or smile design tabs that you can send to the clinic to help them understand, which libraries you primarily are using and what they would be comfortable in prescribing for their patient. Because the expectation of you're going to scan something in and get something back that looks almost identical to it is a bit of a myth with how the softwares are currently constructed.
I think to add to that too, Chris, so many of these patients, I think we're probably better off just to copy their previous denture because we go build them a nice new one. And then they're like, oh, well, this tooth doesn't quite fit like my other denture, or, oh, now my lip is getting hung up and it didn't quite do it like the other denture. And then several revisions later, you're pretty much back to what their original denture looked like. Yeah, maybe we just need to do more copy dentures.
But to add to that too, with outsourcing or doing design in-house, there's still that quality control. You really want to look at what you're getting back. We always get a photo and a 3D image of what we're expecting back if we're using a design service. But we look at occlusion and of course the mold of the denture teeth. And I'm a big stickler on occlusion. I want to make sure this is going to be a functional denture. But we have to look at that that quality control aspect of it too. Whether it's outsourcing or doing it in-house. And if, like Chris mentioned, it's nice to have the clinician have a living mold guide in front of them so they can tell us actually what mold they're using. That really helps out a lot. Because that was in the beginning when we didn't have a lot of the information in the libraries, we ran into a lot of problems like that, and then not getting the right mold. I could tell right off the bat, nope, that's not the right mold for this arch. So you have to look at those aspects also.
Anything else on outsourcing and in-house design?
I would say, just to piggyback on what Dennis said, I'll give you some actual numbers that we were able to aggregate over a significant period of time. But when we first started leading into design services, and this isn't even me wearing my affordable hat, it's just from my past life, we were seeing almost 3 try-ins for every 1 final when we first started working with design services. So until we sort of integrated some quality control and built that communication gap, we definitely got closer to that 1-to-1 that we were looking for. But that took a lot of alignment and education to get everybody on the same page to get to that number. So yeah, you have to have some form of quality control or have some eye look at these cases before you decide to send them out to your doctors, or you may lose credibility with those doctors.
And also be able to, with the design service, being able to pivot back and forth and be able to say, okay, I'd